Hello children, let us continue with our cell chapter. In my last class I had told you about what is a cell, why it is called as the fundamental unit of life or basic unit of life. It is called as the basic unit or fundamental unit, or we also call it as the structural and functional unit of all living organisms, because every organism, whether it is a tiny organism, whether it is a big organism, whether it is a unicellular organism or whether it is a multicellular organism, all are made up of cells. This we call as cellular nature. We call it as cellular nature. Every living organism is made up of cell, and cell performs so many functions. I told you last time. There are certain activities or processes that are performed by the cells, right? In unicellular organism, that single cell performs all the functions, whereas in multicellular organisms there are separate group of cells which perform a different function. And within the cell itself, there are many structures which are living structures. Most of them are living structures only, which perform specific functions. All these parts or components of the cell are called as cell organelles. Cell organelles. These are spread in the cell. Now, when we talk of a cell, see, there are mainly we classify the cells into plant cells and animal cells. Plants work in a different way. Plant constitution is different. Animal constitution is different. Animal functions are different. Right? Plants are fixed at one place, whereas animals move from one place to another, whether in search of food or to protect themselves from enemies or to protect themselves from rain, heat, or all these calamities. So the functions done by animals are different, functions done by plants are different. That's why their body constitution is different. And the cells are also different. This is a typical animal cell. This is a typical plant cell. Whether it is an animal cell, whether it is a plant cell, there are some common organelles in both. A few are exceptions. Okay, a few are exceptions in animal cell and few exceptions in the plant cell. Let us discuss about it later. But now, when we say a cell, there will be three main components. There are three main components in a cell. Structure of a cell. When we talk of cell, there will be three important parts or three important components. One is called as the cell membrane or plasma membrane. Cell membrane or plasma membrane. Second is the nucleus. Nucleus is the most prominent structure, most important structure in any cell, whether it is an animal cell, whether it is a plant cell. Nucleus is always the most important part of the. Why, I'll tell you later. Then is the cytoplasm. Third part is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is all the fluid that we see inside. This is called as cytoplasm, here and here. Cytoplasm occupies most of the space inside the cell, whether it is an animal cell or whether it is a plant cell. Most of the cell within the cell is occupied, most of the space within the cell is occupied by cytoplasm. And this cytoplasm contains the cell organelles. Cytoplasm contains the cell organelles. Different cell organelles are there, right? Most of them are living only. A few are non-living substances also. Non-living structures are also there in the cell, which I will tell you later. Now, let us go to the first component, that is cell membrane. These are the three important parts of any cell, right? Cell membrane or plasma membrane. Second, nucleus. Third, cytoplasm. Now one by one. What is a cell membrane? What it does? What is the function of a cell membrane? Now, whether it is an animal cell or a plant cell, the outermost part of this one is the boundary, what we call the boundary of the cell, is done by the cell membrane or plasma membrane. It gives a definite shape to the cell. Here also, see here, this is called as a cell membrane. Cell membrane gives a definite shape to the cell. Not only that it gives a definite shape to the cell, it controls the movement of materials. Cell membrane controls the movement of materials in and out of the cell. Means what? Materials move from the surroundings into the cell, or materials come out of the cell into the surroundings through this cell membrane. Cell membrane restricts or controls the movement of materials or substances in or out of the cell. And it does not allow all the materials to enter or all the materials to leave the cell. It allows only certain materials, certain substances to enter the cell or leave the cell. That is why cell membrane is called as a selectively permeable membrane. Because it allows only certain materials to enter or leave the cell, it is called a selectively permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. It is called selectively permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. Now, what is the cell membrane made up of? What makes the cell membrane? What is the composition of the cell membrane? Cell membrane is made up of what we call as lipoproteins. A cell membrane is made up of lipoprotein. Lipoprotein means fats and proteins. It is made up of fats and carbohydrates, fats, proteins and all. So this cell membrane is made up of fats and proteins, or we call it as lipoproteins. Now, one is it gives shape to the cell. Two functions of cell membrane: gives definite shape to the cell. That is one function. Secondly, controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. Controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. Two functions performed by cell membrane or plasma membrane. One is it gives definite shape to plant cell and animal cell. Secondly, it controls the movement of substances in and out of the cell. Is what? It allows only certain substances to enter or leave the cell. Therefore, Cell membrane is called selectively permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. Selectively permeable membrane or semi-permeable membrane. Okay. Now, what are the processes through which materials enter or leave the cell? What processes help the substances to enter or leave the cell? There are two main processes through which substances enter or leave the cell. There are two main processes through which substances enter the cell or leave the cell. They are one is diffusion and second one is called osmosis. One is called as diffusion and second is called osmosis. What is diffusion? Diffuse means what? To enter another space from here. Say for example, see we are using body deodorants or body sprays. When we spray the perfume or these deodorants on our body, within a short time, the smell spreads to the whole room or to the whole house. Similarly, when you light an incense stick or agarbatti in some corner of the house, when you light one incense stick or agarbatti, what we call, the fragrance or the smell of that agarbatti spreads to the whole house. Within no time, the smell comes here. Oh, somebody has lit agarbatti, somebody has used a perfume, or something is became cooked in the kitchen. The smell of that dish which is prepared in the kitchen comes to us. Means what? All these particles start moving in the surroundings and get exchanged till they become saturated. After some time we don't get. So this movement of exchange of smell particles with air particles we call as diffusion. We call it as diffusion. For example, in our body and in all other animals also, plants also, we breathe in air. What this air mainly contains, what our body requires? Oxygen. We breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen, means we take in oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide, we give out carbon dioxide. This oxygen goes to our lungs, and in the lungs, this oxygen get exchanged to carbon dioxide. Oxygen get exchanged to carbon dioxide. In the lungs, there are cells called alveoli, small, tiny cells. They exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide. So, oxygen goes into the lungs and carbon dioxide comes out. Carbon dioxide comes out. We are giving out carbon dioxide. So, exchange of gases in the lungs or in the cells is because of in the lungs and in the cells is by diffusion. Diffuse means to penetrate, go inside and mix with other particles, right? So, exchange of gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide in our lungs and in the cells is by diffusion. Example, this is one example. What is the definition? Definition is movement of substances movement of substances from a region of higher concentration, movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. The definition of diffusion is movement of substances or materials from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. Movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. This is the example. क्या example है इसका? What is the example? Example is exchange of gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide in our lungs and in the cells. That is the example. Alright? I gave you two more examples. Body spray, agarbatti, etc. Alright? Now, in the next class, I will tell you about another process which is called as osmosis. Okay, we stop here. So, cell, plant cell and animal cell. Two main types of we classify cells as animal cells and plant cells. Depending on the constitution, body constitution, plants have different type of cells, animals have different type of cells. These cells perform different functions, these cells perform different functions. So depending on the functions, they are different cells, right? Now, whether it is an animal cell or a plant cell, three important parts are there in the cell. In the structure of a cell, we see three different parts. One is a cell membrane, second is the nucleus, and in between cell membrane and the nucleus, you can see a large space filled with a fluid material which we call as cytoplasm, or it is also called protoplasm because it is a living structure. There will be so much of movement taking place in the cytoplasm, so it is also called protoplasm. Cell membrane is made up of fats and proteins, lipoproteins. It gives a shape to the cell and controls the movement of materials in and out of the cell by two processes. One is diffusion, another is osmosis. Diffusion is movement of substances from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Example, exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen in our lungs and cells. Right? Next class I will tell you about osmosis and then tell you about again different types of osmosis. Alright? Thank you. Keep reading.